Imagine waking up one morning. You open your eyes, the light is filtering in, and you do what you do every single day. You reach over to the nightstand for your morning cup of tea.
Just a totally automatic habit.
Exactly. But today, something is horribly wrong. Your arm feels incredibly heavy. It feels, well, strained, almost like it belongs to someone else.
Yeah, the connection is just broken.
Right. You try to command your hand to open its fingers, to grasp that familiar ceramic mug, but nothing happens the way it used to.
It's a terrifying scenario, and yet, it is the daily reality for millions of people navigating life after a stroke.
It really is.
The vascular damage in the brain often weakens one side of the body. And the intricate motor control we need for our arm and hand is frequently the most severely compromised.
Suddenly, those basic tasks, brushing your teeth, getting dressed, holding a spoon, they turn into exhausting battles, both physical and mental. If you're in that situation or watching a family member go through it, your immediate priority is finding a pathway to functional recovery. And that's what we're getting into on today's deep dive.
We have a really fascinating stack of research to go through today.
We do. We're centering this deep dive around a draft blog post from a medical device company called EMS. And this isn't just standard industry marketing fluff.
No, not at all. It is heavily grounded in a massive December 2023 systematic review. This was published in the journal Frontiers in Neurology.
Right, and the methodology behind this review is just incredible. A team led by a Stanford University researcher working with experts from Denmark, Italy, and Sweden set out to answer one huge question.
Yeah, they wanted to isolate the absolute most effective applications of electrical muscle stimulation for upper limb recovery.
Which is a huge field. They started with 923 distinct research papers across 4 major databases.
That's a mountain of data. But they applied these highly restrictive filtering criteria to isolate just the 25 most rigorous studies.
Just 25 made the cut.
Exactly. Every single study they ultimately included had to test real stroke survivors, and they had to measure actual quantifiable functional arm movement.
So our mission for this deep dive is to decode the science for you. We want to separate the genuine clinical hope from the technological hype.
Yeah, because we are moving far beyond the old era of just making paralyzed muscles twitch so they don't shrink.
We're entering this whole new paradigm of highly personalized, closed-loop medicine. So, okay, let's unpack this. We don't need to retread the absolute basics of EMS.
Right. Most people know the general concept of electrical muscle stimulation.
Yeah, we are focusing entirely on FES, or functional electrical stimulation. That's where you use gentle, carefully timed electrical pulses to drive a specific useful movement.
Like opening a hand to grasp an object, rather than just a random muscle spasm.
Exactly. And the baseline approach the Stanford review looked at is what we call open loop, or manual FES.
Right. So in this open loop setup, the physical therapist is basically entirely in control. They put the electrode pads on the patient's arm, and they use a little handheld controller.
Just pressing a button manually to trigger the electrical current.
Yeah, they manually control the sequence and intensity, and this has been the standard of care for years because it undeniably works on a mechanical level.
The review actually quantified this. They found patients using manual FES had an average gain of 5.6 points on the Fugl-Meyer assessment.
Which is a really solid gain.
Yeah, to put that into context for you, the Fugl-Meyer assessment, or FMA, is a deeply rigorous test. It doesn't just ask the patient how they feel today.
No, it measures reflex activity, joint coordination, very specific synergistic movement patterns.
So a 5.6-point gain is a real, reliable improvement in what that arm can physically do.
But what's fascinating here is the underlying limitation of this open-loop FES. It lacks synchronized cognitive engagement.
Meaning the patient's brain isn't really involved.
Exactly. In this manual setup, the stimulation happens whether the patient is intensely concentrating on moving their hand or whether they're, completely zoned out.
Just looking out the window, thinking about what to make for dinner.
Right. The machine delivers the current, the muscle reacts, and the arm moves. The patient is entirely passive.
It totally makes me think of putting a kid on a swing who absolutely refuses to kick their legs.
Oh, that's a perfect way to look at it.
Right, like you just stand there pushing them. Yes, they are swinging. The physical movement is happening through the air, but the passenger is just along for the ride.
Yeah, they aren't generating any of the momentum.
So if the electricity is doing all the heavy lifting, is the damaged brain actually relearning anything? Or are we just treating the arm like a meat puppet?
Well, the physiological reality is that stroke recovery is a neurological challenge, not just a muscular one.
Because the stroke actually damaged the brain tissue, right?
Exactly. It damaged the neural pathways that send the signal from the brain to the arm. So, to regain function, healthy neurons in the brain need to rewire themselves around the damage.
And that rewiring, neuroplasticity, requires the patient to be mentally engaged.
Absolutely. Which leads us to the closed loop systems the review analyzed. These demand the patient's active participation.
And the first one sounds like literal science fiction. It's brain-computer interface controlled stimulation, or BCI-FES.
Yeah, the setup for this is incredibly sophisticated. The patient wears an EEG cap that is covered in these highly sensitive electrodes.
Which sit right against the scalp to monitor brainwaves.
Right, they monitor the electrical activity across the motor cortex. And at the same time, the patient is usually looking at a virtual reality display.
Like watching a digital avatar of their own arm moving.
Yes. So instead of a therapist pressing a button, the patient has to mentally imagine opening their own hand.
They just think about it.
They intensely visualize it. The EEG cap detects that specific burst of brain activity, and an algorithm translates that into a direct command for the FES device on their arm.
So you think about moving, the machine reads the thought, fires the electricity, and your physical hand opens. That is mind-blowing.
It really is. It relies on Hebb's principle from neuroscience, which says cells that fire together wire together.
Right, you're pairing the mental intention perfectly with the physical action.
Exactly. By providing the visual VR feedback and the physical FES sensation at the exact moment the patient intends to move, it forces the brain to build new, robust neural connections.
Okay, the biological theory sounds flawless. But when you look at the hard data from those 25 Stanford-reviewed studies, there's a weird contradiction.
Yeah, the scores don't quite align with how advanced the tech is.
Right. The average gain on the Fugl-Meyer scale for this high-tech, brain-controlled FES was 5.37 points.
Which, if you remember, is actually marginally lower than the 5.6-point gain from the old-school therapist-controlled manual FES.
Yeah. So since the scores are slightly lower, I have to ask, isn't this incredibly expensive high-tech EEG gear just a flashy gimmick? Like, it doesn't actually yield better results.
Looking purely at those clinical scores, it's easy to draw that conclusion. But analyzing the real impact means looking beyond just the immediate joint angles.
So what are we missing in those numbers?
Well, BCI systems, like the commercially available RecoverXX platform, are doing something profound. They force the cortex to stay actively involved.
Just if you lose focus, the machine stops working.
Exactly. The system simply will not trigger the muscle if the patient's mental focus drifts. The cognitive load itself becomes the primary therapy.
Oh, wow. So even if the immediate mechanical gain in the arm is roughly the same, you are giving the brain a massive workout.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the goal isn't just a twitching muscle in a clinic, it's rewiring a damaged brain so you can eventually move without the tech.
But as cool as reading brainwaves is, the data shows there is an even more effective way to bridge this gap.
Yes, and the clinical results for this next method are just staggering.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The review also analyzed another closed-loop system called EMG-controlled FES, or electromyography-controlled stimulation.
And rather than trying to read complex brainwaves through the skull, this tech listens to the muscle itself.
How does it do that?
They place these tiny, highly sensitive sensors directly onto the skin over the paralyzed or weakened muscle.
And they don't shock you, right? They just listen.
Exactly. They are entirely passive. They are calibrated to detect the incredibly faint natural electrical signals that your impaired muscle generates when you try to move it.
So you try to open your hand, your stroke-damaged brain sends a really weak signal down to your arm.
Right, a signal that is way too weak to actually move your hand on its own.
It's just a whisper of a signal. But these EMG sensors hear it anyway.
They detect that exact physical effort. And the defining genius of this system is what happens next.
The algorithmic response.
Yes. The moment the sensor detects your effort, the electrical stimulation kicks in to complete the movement. But it adjusts automatically, in real time.
Meaning it perfectly matches how hard you were trying.
Exactly. If you manage to push a little harder organically, the machine provides proportionally more support to help you finish the task.
It's literally like power steering in a car. You know, you still have to turn the wheel yourself. You have to put in the initial intent and physical force.
But the system multiplies your strength.
Yeah, so you can turn thousands of pounds of metal easily. Or Think of an electric pedal assist bicycle.
Oh, an e-bike is a great comparison.
Right. The motor doesn't do anything if you just sit there. But when you hit a hill and start pedaling hard, it senses your effort and multiplies it to get you up the incline.
It is a true partnership between human intention and machine assistance. And that mechanical partnership yields clinical results that absolutely dwarf the other methods.
Let's talk about those numbers. Because manual FES gave us 5.6 points, and brain-controlled FES was 5.37 points.
But the patients using the EMG-controlled muscle listening FES, they saw a staggering 14.14-point average increase on the Fugl-Meyer assessment.
A 14-point jump. I mean, that represents a massive shift in what a person can actually do every day.
It really does, and the researchers cross-referenced that with another critical metric, the Action Research Arm Test, or ARAT.
Right, because the Fugl-Meyer looks at joint movements, but the ARAT checks real-world skills.
Exactly. It tests things like grasping a block, holding a fork, or reaching up to a shelf. And on the ARAT, the EMG-controlled group showed an 11.9-point average gain.
That directly translates to getting your independence back. It's the difference between needing someone to feed you and having the motor control to eat on your own.
It proves why this technology matters to you. The most robust recovery happens when the external technology is slaved directly to your own localized physical intention.
It turns it from just a therapy session into real-time, personalized neuromuscular re-education.
Yes, you are continuously retraining that specific pathway between your mental intent, your muscle contracting, and actually completing the task.
It's incredible, but, any deep dive into medical literature requires a reality check. Science isn't just an unbroken parade of miracles.
Definitely not. And the Stanford review was highly critical of the current limitations and the flaws in how this tech has been evaluated.
Let's start with the safety guidelines. Because putting electricity into the human body requires strict protocols.
Right. While FES is generally safe under professional supervision, there are definitive contraindications. Therapists have to watch skin comfort very closely.
Because the electrical resistance can cause burns or severe rashes under those gel pads, really.
Exactly. It also shouldn't be used over open wounds or during pregnancy, since we just don't know how those electrical fields might impact fetal development.
And critically, there are severe risks for patients with certain cardiac pacemakers or severe congestive heart failure.
Yeah, the cardiac issue is vital. An FES device generates an electrical field that can confuse a pacemaker's sensors.
It might think the therapeutic pulses are an irregular heartbeat.
Exactly, and respond inappropriately. Plus, stimulating large muscles increases blood return to the heart, which can overwhelm a failing heart.
So the physical limitations are very real. But the review also exposed alarming flaws in the research itself.
Even among those top 25 studies, many completely lacked a control group.
Which is a huge problem in stroke research.
It is, because after a stroke, patients often experience some degree of natural, spontaneous neurological recovery as the brain swelling goes down.
So if you don't have a control group doing standard therapy on the same timeline, you can't prove that massive 14-point gain was just from the FES device.
Exactly. You lose the ability to isolate the variable. The data integrity was also hurt by incredibly small sample sizes.
Right, some of these conclusions were based on 8 or 10 participants.
The review even included feasibility studies that looked at just one single patient. You cannot declare a medical breakthrough based on one person's wrist.
Definitely not. We also still lack hard proof of actual neuroplasticity changes in the brain for a lot of these systems.
Yeah, there is a glaring lack of long-term follow-up data. They recorded scores on the last day of therapy, but didn't check back at 6 months or a year to see if the gains lasted.
And without fMRI data showing the brain physically rewired itself, we're just making highly educated guesses based on how well their arm moves.
Which is exactly why the field is trying to innovate past these bulky, flawed clinical setups. They are pivoting aggressively toward flexible electronics.
Because those old-school hydrogel pads are clumsy, right? They lose stickiness, they dump electricity into a broad area, and they cause muscle fatigue really fast.
Right. They continuously stimulate the exact same muscle fibers, which depletes their calcium ions quickly.
So what's the engineering solution? E-sleeves.
Yes, e-sleeves and printed fabric electrode arrays. Instead of slapping 2 big gel pads on, you slide on a breathable fabric sleeve embedded with dozens of microscopic electrodes.
So you can be way more precise.
Incredible precision. The algorithm can target a single specific fiber within a finger muscle. And it solves the fatigue problem by rotating the firing sequence across different microscopic electrodes in milliseconds.
Letting individual muscle fibers rest while the overall hand keeps moving smoothly? That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I have to play the skeptic here.
Fair enough.
We've seen so many miracle tech cures fade away.
Hmm.
Are these hybrid robot VR flexible sleeve setups actually going to be in living rooms anytime soon? Or is it just lab-coated science fiction?
Well, this raises an important question about patient accessibility. Heavy robotic gear and dense EEG caps will probably stay in specialized hospitals for a long time.
Because they're just too expensive and fragile.
Right. However, the core, most effective technology, the EMG-controlled muscle listening FES, is making the leap to the consumer sphere right now.
Which brings us back to the Orium's data.
Exactly. Oriums is actively designing comfortable, portable EMS devices specifically for home use. The transition from lab to living room is happening as we speak.
So stroke survivors don't have to wait for clinic visits to get the reps in.
Right, because true neuroplasticity requires massive repetition. You can't achieve that with just 2 hours a week at a clinic. You need a device at home to do high-intensity reps every single day.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? If we boil all this Stanford-reviewed data down, it's this. Passive treatments are okay, but active participation is the secret.
Yes. When technology acts as an intelligent amplifier for your own effort, that is when you truly regain lost movement.
Science is firmly on the side of recovery. It is turning these wild ideas into evidence-backed, practical support.
It rejects the idea of the patient just being a passive recipient of care.
So if you or someone you love is on a stroke recovery journey, this deep dive shows exactly why you should talk to your healthcare team.
Ask them if closed-loop EMG-controlled FES could be part of your rehabilitation plan.
Because when the technology actively listens to your body, the potential for recovery expands dramatically.
It's all about leveraging the tech to maximize the yield of your own hard work.
Absolutely. And I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over. We just spent this deep dive talking about how closed-loop systems rewire stroke-damaged brains.
Right, by perfectly syncing a physical effort with instant electrical feedback.
Exactly. But what happens if we apply this exact same technology to healthy brains?
Oh, the implications for human performance are just staggering.
Right. I mean, if these e-sleeves can read localized muscle intent and instantly guide the perfect physical tension, why keep it just for physical therapy?
You could theoretically use it for motor learning in any context.
Imagine sliding an e-sleeve onto your arm, not to heal a lesion, but to instantly teach your muscles the exact micro-movements needed to play the piano.
Or strap it to your legs to perfect a golf swing in one afternoon without years of trial and error.
Right. If we could harness this electricity to rebuild the broken connections needed to hold a cup of tea, we might be on the verge of downloading entirely new physical skills into the human body in a fraction of the time. Just something to think about the next time you reach for your mug.